Now you can see what we're doing is programming this Raspberry Pi Pico clone board. It's a motor driver board because it has a battery power input into this green port. And then we've got two black ports, which are DC motors, and four pin headers right here for servos. The idea being we can turn this servo laterally and make a bucket that will raise and lower. Now, I want to talk about where we get the coding for this board and how it compares to other boards that are Pico based. This one is a motor driver board. Sorry, this one is an expansion board by a Boom company for the Pico. This one is by Citron, just like this one is by Citron. This one is an expansion board with built-in Pico, but not a motor driver. I want to talk about the importance of the configuration of this board. It has holes right here in each corner that are designed to accommodate these Lego Technic. We call them 5x7 rectangle, 5 hole by 7 hole, which then can be assembled, snapped together to accommodate the motors and a battery. I 3D printed the battery case here, which is the pink plastic. It's important that this board was designed with holes that are spaced properly in the right size to accommodate these Lego Technics parts. So we don't have to hand build a chassis or 3D print one. This was obviously a design characteristic of this board. The designers made this board to fit these Lego parts, Technics parts, in Malaysia, but I don't see anybody else on YouTube showing how this can be assembled. The board from Yaboom has the same pinholes, 5mm pinholes in the corners in order to fit this system. This board is not a motor driver. It is by Citron. It does not have those holes. It's got little screw holes that you can screw it into a piece of wood or a 3D printed chassis. But then you don't have the motor driving part, the power input right here. You don't have that. So here's a way to get that part. Citron makes for $4.50 US a little expansion motor driver. Maker Drive H-Bridge for motor driver for beginner. There is code that shows you how to adapt this to this board. You still don't have these through holes that fit the Lego, but at least you have now a way to convert this into a motor driving board using this piece. Now, where do we get the code for this motor driver from Citron? They have a GitHub right here. I'll put a link to this in the description of this video. If you buy the board, which costs $12.50 US, this Maker Pi RP2040 board with the proper size holes to fit the Lego Technics 5x7 rectangles, and then build out your chassis from that point. If you buy that, you can go to this GitHub and you can find the code you need to experiment and learn about how this works. If you're a school teacher and your public schools or whatever schools you are in blocks GitHub, and this I'm aware that this does happen in some schools. The IT department blocks certain, or maybe blocks all, websites that are not approved. GitHub may be blocked. You're going to have to go home as a school teacher, download this code, and I'm using MicroPython. These code files, save them like to a thumb drive, and take them to school because your kids can't get on GitHub. What I've done is I've gone through each of these file folders. Some have more than one file, and I've downloaded the code, the sample code, so we can then learn what we're doing. Here's what it ends up looking like. Here's each PY file that's given, and I've used a combination of the motor and the servo in order to make this work the way it works. Now, notice that on the web page, we have both examples written for CircuitPython and for MicroPython. They're not the same samples. CircuitPython has different examples. It does have motors, but the MicroPython examples, once you've installed the MicroPython firmware, this board comes with CircuitPython firmware. So does this one from Citron, but it's easy to download the MicroPython firmware to your board and then use these examples. So there'll be more about all this. We're just explaining how we can use this product with these Lego Technics parts, and eventually we'll be able to build a bucket and program this car to raise and lower the bucket using the servo. We also see that there's ultrasonic code, so we're going to learn how to do distance sensing so this little rover won't run into the walls. Just one example of how this Citron board can be used with the motor driving system. It also has a recharger port right here. This is the data port, and it's also the recharger port. So we can recharge our rechargeable LiPo battery just by plugging in a power cord here, USB power cord. So there will be more about all this. This is actual code that's given in that example. Running the wheels forward, backward, high speed, slow speed, changing different LED colors or changing the color to correspond. All of these little blue lights are programmable on this board.